If you're new, I think you should explore everything. Taste every food on the buffet. See how it tastes. Then you start to learn what you like and what you think tastes good.
Welcome back to the Grappling Podcast. I'm back co-host Levi Van Stappen and Matthew Bartman. And today we are going to be discussing Matt's background in his martial arts experience. So why don't we just start off right away? Matt, what was the first martial art that you got into?
Actually, my first martial art, I think, was actually Japanese jiu-jitsu.
Where'd you take Japanese jiu-jitsu?
YMCA.
They had Japanese jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, I wanted to do martial arts like so much when I was younger.
Sure.
My family, we just weren't in the financial place to be able to do something like that for a while. But there were some classes at the Y and things like that. So I would do like those like promo classes and try to do them.
How old were you?
I think I was in 5th grade.
Okay.
Because
that's fairly young.
Yeah,
still.
I was pretty sure I was in 5th grade.
Okay.
And it was cool, but the only thing is like there was no mats. It was done on a tile floor. Like it was rough.
I can visualize that.
Yeah, and I really didn't know what I was doing.
So was it one of your parents that pushed it? Like they said, "Hey, like there's this class," or you saw it?
I was so obsessed with like martial arts. And
okay.
Stuff. Watch martial art movies all the time. Like my parents just knew that. They're like, we got to get this martial arts.
Yeah.
But they were reading. My mom was reading through like the YMCA packet and be like, they got jujitsu. And I was like, oh, I want to do that.
Sure.
And I remember too. So The Matrix came out, and there's that scene where he's like, I'm going to learn jujitsu.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I was just like, jujitsu. That was the one that that's good. All right.
That's amazing.
And so I did some classes of that. I can't honestly remember why I stopped though.
Okay.
I don't think from dislike, but I think it was just, it cost so much and there was like, just probably wasn't going to happen.
So you're saying your parents kind of discontinue it, you felt, or it just kind of petered off a little bit?
They were super supportive. I just was trying to remember, I don't know if it was just, I just wasn't that into it too, or if it was I think there was a disconnect in me understanding the whole picture of it where I was like, how does this all work together?
Okay.
And then a little bit after jiu-jitsu, I think I did wrestling for a little bit, very short amount of time. And because I would consider that definitely martial arts.
100%, yeah.
And, I did not come from a family that knew wrestling. I didn't really know anything about wrestling. I just tried it out one year. And I did terribly. I didn't really know what I was doing. Everyone had headgear, the singlets, the shoes. I was out there barefoot.
Oh, wow.
With jean shorts on and
coaches didn't say anything.
It was just because it was kind of like a summer program.
Oh.
It was something simple.
Now, hold on, was this
the
during
coach was my dentist.
Oh, funny.
But I actually did wrestle in a tournament.
Okay.
And I somehow got 3rd in my division.
Whoa.
But no, it's funny. When I tell you this, it sounds less impressive because there's probably 3 guys in my division or something.
Yeah.
Because I got brought. I wrestled the guy who did it for 3 years, and I think I beat him. I wrestled the guy who did it for 5 years at that point. No, 10.
Sure.
And I can't remember if I won or lost.
Okay.
The guy, then I also wrestled the guy who did it for 7 years. He's been doing wrestling for 7 years.
You're doing the math right now.
And he was doing it since he was 3.
Yeah.
He might have been a little bit older because I was a little heavier for my age.
Sure.
At that time, but he just destroyed me. I cried.
Cried of course,
like a little baby. I just was to my parents, I don't like this. And I just didn't know what was going on. In retrospect, it actually probably shows how important it is if you bring someone into a combat sport and they don't know what you're supposed to do, what success looks like, any of those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to get pushed away from it because you're just all I did is I showed up to this thing, did a bunch of duck walks and got my ass kicked.
Yeah.
Why would I keep doing this thing? When you're a kid,
nothing seems like it's fixing it.
Yeah. There was none of that oh, wow, that was fun. And I know what I'm doing. I didn't know the positions. They're all right, now do this. Go on your hands and knees. Didn't really get it at the time. Just because like I said, this was my very first exposure to it was doing it. But I did that for just a short amount of time. And,
okay.
But then I still, though, this whole time was always thinking karate was the thing to do. And I always thought because I, had friends who did karate. I knew it was accessible. There was a school that looked cool, kick the pads and punch things and stuff like that. And so I started once again in one of those kind of promo over the summer 6 week
I remember those
things.
things. Yeah.
And that's what we did. And I really, really liked it. I thought the instruction was really good. I had a fun time with it. I was also at the right age that I was like super receptive. I would have been receptive in the past, but it was like the perfect alignment of things where I was like, this is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up doing that for a handful of years, and I liked it, but I definitely like started getting bored with it. I was very similar to you at the beginning where I was like, this belt, I got a new belt. This is so cool.
Yeah.
This was like amazing. And I'm like, I did this,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm leveling up, you
Yeah.
know? And like, I was super dedicated to it. I really enjoyed it. I wanted to get as best as I could. And then as I got stronger and bigger and faster and more skilled at it, I just noticed that I was beating a lot of people, like
kind of what age level you were at?
when I was doing that.
Yeah.
I think it really started petering out around 17.
Oh, okay.
Like where I was like, and I was lifting weights at that time too. And like, I just remember like, I wanted to spar harder. I wanted to do wrestling. I wanted to get back into grappling, doing things like that. I wanted to combine like wrestling, fight, like
a little more visceral, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to be able to fight really well.
Sure.
And the problem is I actually really wanted to do full MMA, but there was like no way to do it in this area.
Yeah, there's no outlet for it.
And especially when I first learned about it when I was like 15 or whatever, I was like, that's what I need to do. No clue how to even get to that point. Like,
sure.
And this is before we knew everything about like all the brain damage and stuff.
Yeah.
At least before I knew about it.
So do you think if you had an outlet, you would have been an MMA fighter or
I
to work towards that?
I guess
Or explored it, I would say.
I would explore it for sure.
Yeah.
I probably would have done a fight, at least one, but like, or maybe done a bunch. I don't know. But that was the thing I wanted to do. I always thought that was cool. And I got really just kind of bored with the fact of like doing like points form.
Sure. I was just going to say that. Yeah. Like that's the next outlet at that point.
We did end up doing some boxing too. And that was a little better because I was able to like really kind of like we could lay into each other a little bit more.
Yeah.
And for some reason I really liked that. I remember when I was in karate, I barely ever showed up to any class except for the sparring classes.
Yeah.
And then like, I would show up to some of like the classes for like, get a good workout
drills
in,
and stuff,
practice my drills, but like never did forms. Not once did I ever compete in forms. All I ever did was compete in sparring.
Yeah.
And,
it's funny with our location, just this building across the way down here, kind of right next to the Timber Rattler Stadium. There used to be MMA fights in that. It used to be like a little cage. So there was a place called Silverbacks in the area that they did MMA fighters, but that was probably like 2011 or 12.
Okay. So I didn't even know.
Right. So there was something but they were like a new gym, and it was back in the era where they had MMA matches, but it was like, same with like Grappling Invitational. It was like 20 matches that were just randomized, and then would have kids that would go, like, I knew one kid that wanted to do it, but then he like just backed out last second, like freaked out and didn't do it. But just saying how early it was for all that, like people want to do this thing, but no one really knew like the outlets to do it. So I could see that.
I also have to preface it too, like, I was dumb, Levi. I was a dumb kid. Like, that's not even modest.
You can't find many smart 15-year-old kids.
Yeah, like I was behind the times with that one.
He's bang, bro.
I don't think I even Googled it, right? Like, and I was just kind of like, man, that looks cool. But at the same time, I was kind of getting disheartened with it, and like, where I was just like, these belts don't mean anything to me. I remember I would go and I won a tournament, and then I just threw the trophies in the closet on the ground.
Yeah.
And then didn't even look at them until I like would clean the closet one day and they were like broken.
There too, yeah.
And I just threw them in the trash.
Yeah.
Like, I just like didn't care, but I enjoyed the sparring.
Sure.
Like, I really liked it. But then like, as I just like tried to hold on to it, I was kind of like, I'm just kind of done with this. I was kind of on the age too. Like, I was, like wanted to spend more time with friends and girls and things like that.
So is that where your martial art kind of just petered off a little bit then?
Paused for a while.
Okay.
Like, for sure. Because all things happening all at once. If I would have found jujitsu then, or MMA, I probably would have kept going for sure. Or at least probably for sure.
So was that a discussion that you had with the school that you basically just went in one day and you're kind of like, yeah, I'm just basically done? Or
no,
was
actually,
it something that you just kind of like stopped going?
Yeah, I had like all my stuff to go to my black belt test. I had all the I had them forever too.
Right.
Like, I'm always like pokey with my belts, and I was just like, had it all. And I looked at the test and I was like, this test doesn't test what I think it tests.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of didn't really care about that too. And I just kind of stopped giving a crap about it and just stopped showing up.
So was it basically at a point where maybe they were seeking you out to test for a black belt and you're kind of like, nah, I'm good. And then you're just a little bit done at that point.
Yeah. And also there was like a cost thing with it too.
Sure.
So like, my parents got divorced when I was 15. And so like money was tight. And what we did the contract where I was already paid up till black belt. They actually did like 3 big installments.
Yeah, I remember that. It was kind of nice.
And so it was kind of cool because then I could keep going.
Sure.
We didn't have the money to go because back when my parents were together, they were
did for it. Yeah.
So
Well, that's
I was
nice.
good to go. So, but I knew that I was going to have to come up with
once
$5,000 or whatever after I tested too. So it was kind of like dragged it on and then was just kind of like, I feel like I'm doing the same thing
that
here.
makes sense. Yeah.
You know, and so there was like multiple forces all at once. Being bored with it, not feel like I'm progressing the way I wanted to
Sure.
into other martial arts. The financial aspect of I didn't want to put that burden on my mom because she would have tried to make it happen, but I didn't want to do that. And then also, truthfully, like I wanted to hang with friends after school. I wanted to, go have fun and things like that. And instead of going to class and, I had some girlfriends and stuff. Yeah. So like it was easy to say no and to class and want to hang out with your girlfriend.
So were there ever opportunities? So you take a pause on karate. Were there ever opportunities until you got back into martial arts that you kind of like just trained with friends or you kind of messed around with martial arts? Like what was the kind of gap of time before you got back into saying, hey, I want to train back in martial arts again?
So I definitely took a pause for a while. I would have started again sooner, but I had my daughter at 20. So like
that'll put a pause.
Yeah, that put a pause. I was like just survival, right?
Sure.
And so that was like all that I focused on. But I actually remember started looking at jujitsu schools and stuff like that when I was like 25 or 24. I was like, oh, it's growing. This is really cool. There's even tournaments and like this is really neat. But I just like I remember I had a really wacky schedule. I was working like swing shift, and I just I know like there's some of these are excuses, but also I didn't have anybody to watch her because I was there was big chunks there where I was a single dad up until
I don't hear them as excuses because it sounded like the end of your last martial arts stint, and I can definitely relate to this. To be like, I wasn't getting as much satisfaction out of it. Yeah. And so that's just what sometimes you transition to something else. Now, thankfully, I had platforms basically to transition off of, but at the end of yours, you're like, I don't really find something and go, well, and I got my friends and girls and all that. And then you kind of just keep going.
And then I had a daughter, and I was like, there was chunks there where I had full custody and full placement. So it was when would I go, right? Like being able to, like I could have maybe squeezed one day a week, but when you look at how it would have cost me, $100 to $200 a month to go 4 times, like I couldn't justify the cost. Yeah. Anyways, time goes on, and I end up owning a gym with my buddies, and it went really go pretty great, and I ended up getting connected to Dylan. Through my friend Ryan, because they just ended up somehow meeting each other in Market America or something like that, and.
So it was more like a friendship type thing. Like, did Ryan train at all, or it was just
no?
Like a connection?
I think he the connection because we were like trying to do like stuff
marketing
together,
type stuff.
And do some like market things together. And then here's Dylan's number, and then I texted Dylan like, hey, I'd like to try that out. And he's like, cool. And then he's so laid back, and I was like, yeah, we can get you in. He was a blue belt at the time.
Sure. And
then so at that point, I was like, okay, I can afford this.
So Dylan is a mutual friend of ours. So when I trained with karate, one of the first couple people that were there was Dylan. So Dylan Kitzer was a guy that we had that I trained karate with him all the way through 3rd degree. And then
we should have him on the podcast.
We should. Oh, he got some good stories. He then went on to run basically Karate America, or take it over, I should say. It went Karate America and Lotus Shoot went to
Conquer.
Before it went to Conquer, it was like Karate Evolution. Was the name that came before. So they kind of took on their own moniker and name, and then that got taken over, and then they switched it over to Conquer Martial Arts.
He said he ended up buying it from a guy. Because he was making like ink in a factory for a while, and then he was like, hey, let's just go for it.
So
and he ended up, they did a great job.
Yeah, I mean,
through their school,
he knew the structure of it backwards and forwards. So, but yeah, so he owns a martial arts school, so you end up getting connected with him then.
Yep. And then him and I started training. A lot of the time it was just us two or like one other person. It was funny though. People from the karate school on this karate side of the school would come and train in jiu-jitsu a little bit to check it out.
Are you saying like there's actual sides, or are you just saying like the group?
The class.
Yeah. Okay.
Like there was the karate class, where they had like all the different belts and stuff. And then jujitsu was essentially Dylan and I trying to kill each other.
I can relate to that.
Like rolling on the ground and sweet.
So, but he had like a jiu-jitsu class.
Yeah.
Okay.
He had like, there was a couple jujitsu classes.
Club, yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
It was in the karate school he owned.
Okay.
It was essentially how it worked. So it was a martial arts school. And it was interesting how some of the guys would come over who had black belts in karate and they just get tapped, like mangled, especially because we were wearing the gi a lot.
Right.
And they had their thin gi on. And if you cross collars,
I remember messing up my karate gis with that.
It was interesting how people who had black belts and they were like, like, especially when they were like younger black belts, not to like categorize people, but they would like walk around with their
early 20s. Yeah.
100%.
Like,
I'm the freaking man. And then we were like, dude, let's join jujitsu.
Yeah.
And then like within 10 seconds, they're getting tapped and just tap.
And they're back on the karate side.
Yeah. We never see them again. And like, it was kind of interesting. So that was an interesting moment seeing that. Cause like cause like when we saw jujitsu, we were like, let's do this. I need to do this thing. And then once you've experienced it, you're like, I have to do this thing. Because I'm not a complete martial artist without it.
Well, and what's interesting is that before you were talking about how you're disheartened by or you weren't really too motivated by the belt ranks itself.
Yeah.
You just wanted to be this MMA fighter, this,
just a martial artist.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right?
Like you want to be good at fighting.
Yeah.
So suddenly you saw jiu-jitsu and you're like, this will make me that or help me out with that. Versus someone who's like, here's this rank. And it's like, someone told me that I am this amazing, great fighter.
Yeah.
And it's like, now you're showing me something that's like breaking this potential illusion. So
it's interesting how you like watch people's like kind of egos just crumble out and then you never see him again. Or I have an interesting story about a guy that was trying it out. So good for him. And he's a nice guy, but it was interesting seeing this different side of people where he was a high ranked belt and he was a little bit older, a little not, so like he wasn't so like chest puffy and stuff. But I got him in a mount and I just held him in a mount.
Oh, right.
Out.
People underestimate that.
Like he freaked out. He like started like hyperventilating and he's like, I gotta stop. He started getting claustrophobic.
Wow.
It was interesting. Like being like, dude, that's a huge hole in your game. So I remember I kept trying to be like, dude, you got it down. Come back. You have to like, the water's less cold every time. Like you gotta like, just keep doing it. And you'll get better, But so anyways, I started doing that around my late 20s.
Okay.
So like coming back to the story. And Dylan and I, we did that. I had a couple injuries here and there that kind of like, I would try to do some competition, really messing up my hand, let that heal. Still trying to do jujitsu and just, I kept amassing injuries.
You were saying competitions. Are you saying that you wanted to do jujitsu competitions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Cause we were training for a little while and I was going to do like grappling industries or something.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Combat corner or whatever.
Yeah.
But, anyway, so we were doing jujitsu, having a good time. We rolled hard every day though. It was like, he's younger than us, right? So I was in my late 20s. I had a physical labor job at the time. And I just like, I thought you were supposed to go 100% every single
he's got
round.
firecracker energy. So
yeah.
it's like, I'm sure that worked out really well.
Yeah. We would have these just mangled rolls. It was crazy. But like the thing is, because we were both so determined and young and I was super dumb with some of this. I was amassing injuries mainly from me not tapping early.
Interesting.
Yeah. I was being a knucklehead, and it was also part of it too, was like, I didn't know how to like, like when you're in an arm bar in guard from, you were in guard, their guard, right? They arm bar you, you're sitting there fighting, you're trying to get your elbow out, but like you're in the gi and you're stuck. And then like you're new and you fall to your shoulder side. And I kind of had this like weird, like kind of like inside of my elbow, like pop, and it hurt.
Yeah.
And it wasn't getting better. And so I ended up amassing all these injuries on my own. Like this was nothing with my training partners being too raw. It was me being a dummy. And I ended up also getting a ridiculous job promotion, like one where I was barely qualified for, like I had all the right energy and passion for it, but as far as like on the technical side of things, but it required travel. So I essentially took 2 years there where I focused on my work, worked a ton. And when you travel, it's hard to train, especially when the school only has like 2 or 3 classes. So I would miss a lot of them. And then also kind of trying to get these injuries to heal, because some of them were just lingering, and I just couldn't get rid of them. And so I wasn't like really lifting much. And I had the gym too with my buddy, and he did the heaviest lifting as far as a lot of like running the day to day and stuff. I did a lot more of the back end things, but we just had a lot of stuff going on, and I had my relationship with Kayla, and we're married now. So obviously put a lot of time in that, and also my daughter. So I just I took another pause, and then I started doing it again after things kind of calmed down a little bit. Did it for a little while.
So you're saying you took a pause with jiu-jitsu with Dylan?
Yeah.
Okay. So you took a pause, you focused on work, and injuries were kind of...
Yeah, I had injuries, work schedule, kind of those types of things.
Sure.
To Dylan's credit, by the way, because he only had a certain classes, because jiu-jitsu was not a moneymaker for him. The karate classes were...
It was more like his self-passion, too.
Yeah. He was just like, keep doing this,
Yeah.
I even told him at one point, I was like, hey, I don't think I'll be able to make any classes a week just from what my new schedule is for.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And I was like, I hope it doesn't offend you, but I think I might try to find a place that has more hours. And so,
interesting.
To his credit, I didn't actually end up going anywhere. I just kept working. But he was like, no, totally cool, man. Like, so
makes sense.
Dylan's a stellar guy.
Yeah.
But then I ended up going back to school, and he ended up moving to the new place, not far from my house too. So that was really great.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It was right there. And
you were right down the road from your house now.
That would have been, I wasn't living there at the time.
Oh, okay. I was like,
living there when you went to the new one.
I kept visualizing you at the new location for some reason. Like suddenly I placed you in the same place I was training. That was the same building.
The same building. That one was when I lived in Neenah, though.
Okay. I was like,
it was kind of funny.
Out of the road. Yeah.
But
that's next door.
But anyway, so took some pauses there and ended up jumping back into it, though, which was cool when he had a new school going. So that was fantastic. And from there, trained. COVID happened. My wife and I had a baby at the beginning of COVID, so we just straight up locked on everything.
Makes sense.
I kept trying to pay tuition, but Dylan wouldn't let me do it. Just once again, another stellar example of Dylan being such a cool guy. And waited it out until eventually Dylan and I were doing jiu-jitsu in my basement. He said, hey, you should go to this place called Theory. He's like, it's really cool, good group of guys. So he's the one who got me.
I think I remember him saying that, like, I think I got this guy Matt coming in, and it was a little bit, and then you popped in and you were like sold right away.
Yeah, I was like, I was here and I was like, clean, bright, good instruction, love it. This is cool. And then I signed up. And then the nice thing though is I feel like this is my longest training stint I've had.
Sure.
Being at Theory, because I've been a lot more conscious about tapping early and things like that. And I've wised up a lot. I've also aged, quite a bit more.
Well, we've talked about that, the idea that
my mid-30s now.
Some of these ideal individuals where it's like they have a little bit more, I shouldn't say stabilized lives, but it's things like you said, like you're having a kid or a new job change or location change or whatever, that I've interacted with enough people, like those are those big factors. Or like having younger kids here where 18, 19, like can be really gung-ho, but it's like college, work, whatever, like they're just gone in a second. So I get it. I think that helps a lot of people keep stabilized. So
one thing on that,
go for
Stephen Kesting has a really good line about that. He's like, life happened. And then, he's been doing jiu-jitsu, martial arts in general for like 40 years or whatever. He's like, it'll always be waiting for you like when you're ready for it again. And I found that to be really nice because I got really down on myself for not doing it. I was like, I essentially not even watching videos or anything because I was just, it just made me sad where I was like, when I wasn't trained. But then when he started saying that, I was like, that's cool. I think like it will be waiting for me and that's okay. And it will take me a little bit to get back up to speed.
Sure.
But it comes back quick too. Like, so anybody who's listening to this potentially and injured or taking a pause just because of having a kid or something like that, like it'll be waiting for you and you'll be back to your old self in like 2 months. Like,
well, and definitely the group of people that you would surround yourself with is just all the level excited to see you again and be like, oh, cool, fantastic. And back on the journey. So I think on that topic, now that, you're here at Theory, what have you felt as far as like your martial arts experience and your grappling experience now? Like, what has been the most beneficial for you, like learning grappling or learning jiu-jitsu?
Like for helping me to learn?
Yeah, like helping you to learn, because there's obviously a lot of language with it, a lot of terminology and advancing yourself. Like, what has helped you the most, like kind of understand the language of jiu-jitsu?
So I would say one part's actually probably not the answer you're going to expect.
Sure.
But trying to stay injury free.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because the longer you speak the language, the better you get.
That's a good point.
And so like my goal at this point is just to have as little training layoffs as possible.
Okay.
So because and then if you think about over the course of 5 years, right? Like the amount you can do 4 sessions a week.
Quantity.
But like I don't have my calculator. I'll just,
Yeah.
like,
I'm sure the math is there.
Yeah. It's just because like, oh, I want to know.
He's
that.
pulling out the calculator.
Hold on, one second here. Because
he needs to know.
So like, because if you do like, say you even train not every single week, because we
sure
for
holidays and
so let's say you train 4 sessions a week for 45 weeks a year.
Yeah,
I think that's fair. That's 180 sessions a year.
And then if you get injured, you're potentially off like 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks,
maybe even longer, depending.
Maybe longer. Yeah.
And so over the course of 5 years, 900 training sessions. That's how I look at it and think about it. If you 10 years, that's 1,800 training sessions at 4 days a week, and 4 days a week is sustainable.
So probably on your end, probably a lot of people get disheartened with jiu-jitsu because in the beginning they could get injured.
Yeah.
And then they're off for a while, and now it's 3 or 4 weeks, and they're potentially seeing their training partners keep going. You're like, why bother? It's like I'm gonna go back and get killed or something like that.
You gotta have a long-term view on it. I think just because there was this there where people talk about the blue belt blues. So like, I'm a blue belt and I read the blue belt blues at blue belt, but when I was a white belt, just because I was on it, I had like, so many chunks that there was multiple times that I was like on deck for a blue belt and life circumstances happened. So, backed off. But I would see my partners keep going, and at first it felt like a nuclear arms race where I was like always trying to outlearn all my partners so that way I could keep advancing and doing well. But at some point you just got to kind of like accept the fact that you can't do that all the time, and it's not fun to do that all the time. And I think that the more time you spend into it, the better you learn the language, so it feels less daunting.
Interesting.
Once like most basic positions. And like, let's say once especially, so all the different types of side control you're pretty much going to see, right? A little bit about half guard, like mount, I think a lot of things from the back, and just because there's like not a ton of variation there, right? But then once you also understand 411, game over, 50-50, ashi, inside out, I should say outside ashi as well. Cross ashi, like once you know those kind of base camps, and then from standing, right, like what seems like a decent position, it's actually not as much of an arms race as you think. It's more so like that's like the foundation of the conversation. From there, you can start to go, oh, hey, here's a cool little hook. Like you're trying to do that heel hook from that spot, put their heel more towards your wristwatch than towards your elbow, and like it'll give you a better braking mechanic. So it feels less like that. But then, so that's one part of my answer and what's helped me learn. And then the other part is actually being able to explore it, not in like just a strict classroom setting, like where you and I do one-on-ones and stuff like that. That was like huge. It's hugely helpful, right? Where we're able to break things down and just spend time in a spot, right? Instead of just like, here's how you do this move, do this move, do this move, do this move. Just try to replicate the motion, being able to sit there and play with it. Like, what does it look like when I do this? And you also, the vibe you have in the school is a lot more accepting of that type of thing.
Sure.
Not saying Dylan wasn't either.
Sure.
I just didn't know what to explore at that time because I was too new. But you like drop into some other schools sometimes and it's like, do the thing exactly as it's shown.
Yeah.
And so like, I think that's been a huge help is once you understand the language, then you just start understanding the very small parts of it of like how you grab somebody's hip, how you grab their arm, what kind of grip you do, how you set up that grip. And that has helped tremendously.
So you're saying that the whole language, you kind of find ways to condense certain things like, oh, it's not really this huge mysterious place. Like here are these core things. And once you understand those core things,
once you got the 20 things figured out.
Things, now you say, here's the one thing we're focused on today.
Yeah.
Here's kind of the ins and outs of mount and going like, oh, okay. Like you start understanding those 20 things and then rolling or sparring is just those 20 things together, which can seem like a lot.
Yeah.
But if you focus on those one things frequently, like you just did the math, like you've walked in those lands a little bit more and more.
You got to spend time in the spots, right? So like when I was focusing on guard passing a lot, my guard passing didn't just double in ability. It like 10x, right? Like it was, I can pass quite a few guards now, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody, right? Like I'm still haven't been doing an insane one. But as far as like, I feel confident I can pass quite a few guards, And so like at the average school, if I go, I think like maybe 60% of the time, people I can pass their guards consistently. because I've spent 3 or 4 months deep diving into that, my submission went down and whatnot, but my ability to pass guard went up, and I made a lot of mistakes. Whenever I start something, it's like, you just get your ass kicked for a while.
So do you feel when people talk about positional sparring, focus attention in schools, where I'll generalize a bit and say, if you go to the average class, you might see like maybe one technique and comboed with other techniques, and then you hit live sparring and everyone's just trying to do more of a, like you said, an arms race just to beat each other. Like, do you think it's because places just don't provide ample opportunities to say, hey, like, we're going to sit and focus on this one thing? Or do you feel like it's the responsibility of the practitioners to say, if you really want to get good at one thing, you're going to have to do separate energy and research to look to learn the one thing?
Both.
Okay.
Oh, like, because like the school does have to cater to like people are different stages in their journey. So like,
sure,
someone might be focused on a certain type of guard, and someone might be focusing on something else. But
right.
I think it's on you to definitely do some research on it. And I think the trick there too is once you know like even more 20, but I don't have the list in front of me, but like the 20 base things,
right? And
then pick like 2 things in each one of those base spots that you go for. It gives you like, you're starting to build this foundation, right, where you can get better and better at learning that language.
Yeah.
And then you also know what to look for. You know when you see something cool. And then, I think the school can go probably about it a couple different ways, where you have your general class where it goes through rotation. Then maybe every month you do have like a focused series of classes too. Right? So I think practitioners could do a little bit of both.
Okay.
Or practitioners and school owners. The tricky part then is to be disciplined in live sparring. And say, let's start here. I always ask people immediately, is there anything you're working on? Almost nobody gives me a spot they're working on. It's kind of interesting. And they'll go, where are you working on? And I've been working on standing a little bit right now. So I just start standing. But you know what's funny though? People who are usually a blue belt or above, they'll spot. Hey, I've been working half guard.
Sure.
Hey, I've been working on seated. Hey, I've been playing this type of thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's both white belts won't give me an answer on.
So do you think white belts at that point is just that they don't know the language enough to know something specific yet? Like they're kind of just like lost in like everything going, I don't know where I should be good or not good at right now, versus kind of like you mentioned the 20 spots where maybe at a blue belt level you go, you can't put me in a position and like, oh, I know this is half guard. Like they roughly know and maybe have had some experiences, but yeah, like you said, I think honestly the blue belt and up now people are a little more sold on developing their jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So I think they're a little bit more involved in that process. Like they kind of know what they suck at more.
Yeah.
And other things too.
I think you learn the ROI in spots too.
Yeah.
Where you go like, when I started doing jujitsu, like I was really heavy into Kimuras. And I like Kimuras still. They're great. I think it's also, especially because we do a lot of Nogi.
Yeah.
They're great because you can grab them from a lot of spots. Like I'm not at all saying the Kimura is not a good submission. I get tapped with Kimuras, like it happens. But the thing is, as far as like ROI, they're when you're starting out, like you might pick something that just comes easy to you, which isn't bad, versus understanding like, what's really good to know? How to get to 411 and how to do an in-thigh, right? Like that has got some oomph behind it.
So I would say on that topic, what do you feel the technique, either recently or in the beginning of your grappling career, or even more recently here at Theory, changed a lot for you? Sorry, what technique like exploded jiu-jitsu for you? Like to say like, wow, this kind of concept or this thing like completely has helped me.
Oh God. Whole topic.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. But I'm like, what made it? Maybe give me one of them.
Okay.
But one of the things that went, wow,
I'm gonna give you more than one, but
you could try. But like, do like something that like says, wow, if I learned this for some reason just unlock things, or this gave me things a lot more than previously I thought.
Actually, I have 3 in mind right now.
Okay.
One of them was actually guard passing.
Okay.
And like doing
guard passing.
Yeah, getting a little better at it and learning the difference between loose and tight passing.
Sure. How
to integrate them a little bit, and playing around with some different passing schemes and whatnot. That really helped a lot because it gave me a way to start and just be able to just get off on the right foot, which was really nice. Plus, you get so many opportunities to practice that as long as your opponent is willing to is playing some type of guard.
Sure.
You get to practice it.
Yeah, right away.
So versus like a specific submission, it's hard to get to a specific submission sometimes.
Yeah, in live sparring.
And so that was really good. And also people are almost always willing to drill that.
Yeah.
So that was something.
Okay.
And then another one that I really like and really kind of helped me think jiu-jitsu a little bit differently was learning the kipping escapes.
That's why I had, I'm like, he's going to say kipping escape.
Yeah. Seriously, because it took a position that was usually very, very hard to get out of, which sometimes still is. People with really good mount control, it's a bear, right? But especially if they're much larger than you. But that really helped because it allowed me to go, it kind of unlocked the idea of like, your escape isn't an escape, it's a counterattack.
Sure.
And your counterattack just requires one more move to get going. So I don't like thinking about it in terms of defense. Like we're talking about it's just more so, this is how you counterattack. You do the kipping. If you find yourself in mode because you screwed up, this is how you do a kipping escape. And this is how you turn it into like a backside 50-50, like heel.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really great. That really exploded it for me. Another concept was actually getting good at arm triangles. That helped a ton because when I transitioned from doing mainly gi with a little bit of no gi to I've essentially haven't put my gi on in like 8 months, maybe a year. I don't know. But having a good sub was that I can rely on, that I can kind of get to in a couple different spots was really nice. And especially a sub that like it's low risk. Love low risk subs where if I don't get the arm triangle, because I don't actually jump off for the arm triangle, I do it from mount.
Keep it from mount, right?
I just keep, as long as I don't get swept because I'm being mindful of my posts. But I can just restart it. You know, if they bust their arms out, okay, that's one time that they had to bust out. I'm just going to do it again and again and again. And that helped a ton when Abbott and I sat there and choked each other for like an hour straight on arm
bloodshot eyes.
Yeah, and now I like to think, you know, you never can feel your own arm triangle.
Sure.
Right? So
I wish,
you know, but I like to think I have a pretty decent arm triangle because that's also not like necky. You know, like I like to feel that it's just crushing the other person's neck just all around, like a good choke should. You know.
So what I hear is those three. It's almost like I have a really confident way to start the game out.
Yep.
Guard passing. Like I can start this right away and kind of get the game going. And then I'm hearing once you do get into a dominant position that you can be able to keep going. All right. So going back to what you were talking about. So you have one technique that helped you start the game, right? So like kind of maybe we talk about takedowns. Like you have an opener that you feel confident with if someone plays guard. Once you get to a dominant position, now without the gi, you're like, cool, I have this arm triangle that I can play with and work with, and even if I lose it, I'm still in a good dominant position. And then on a defensive end, you're like, cool, even if I'm the one playing guard, you pass and get on top of me, now I have this counter offense that can completely switch the game and put me back in an offensive cycle. You know, and get you into like leg locks and such.
It's kind of like a neat little shortcut.
Where
you like, if you go for the legs, there's like a lot of good things there. Or even like the leg locks, the Dean Lister one that you showed me, where you end up if someone knee shields me, I just stopped doing that one because it was too easy, and I was just like, this is gonna be annoying. I actually should keep doing it because then someone will come up with a good counter.
But I think the three that you talk about are three things that most jiu-jitsu people run into, and it's like I can't pass people's guards. Even if I get to mount, maybe they don't like mount because they feel more tippable, or they feel like there's no offense. Like without the gi, now I'm like, I can't cross color, I can't do whatever. And then obviously getting in bomb mount. Sometimes people have very mystique ways of escaping, and then for the average person getting smashed, it's like nothing too reliable. So the Danaher team talking about kipping escapes and things like that, it's really important. So on the topic of getting into these kind of philosophies, who do you feel has made one of the biggest impacts for your grappling training, as far as like instructors you've seen, or, you know, I would say as far as like giving insights to grappling, not so much maybe like, you know, watching an MMA person going like, wow, they're utilizing it like an inspiration to grapple. It's saying now that you're in the grappling field, like what has kind of helped change your own way that you approach grappling?
Let's see.
One of the individuals. I can't say most because since it's a hard balance.
Yeah, like obviously I've learned a lot from you, you know.
Okay,
so
I appreciate
really
that.
Cool. Yeah, especially you're open to trying things, right? That's been really, because like for me to learn, I definitely realized like I said, I have to spend time there. I can't just like practice it once without resistance and be like, all right, I got it. You know, like I want to know it, right? Like I want to really understand it. That's why like So us being able to do deep dives and talk about it and stuff like that, that's helped probably the most.
Yeah.
But as far as if I'm talking about like people outside the school, I would say, obviously, like there's a lot of obvious names out there, right? Like John Danaher's got a lot of really good stuff. You know, he's got a great way of breaking things down, but he's definitely very detailed in his instruction.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, like he's very detailed, and which is there is a place for that.
Yep.
It's just it's a lot sometimes, just as far as like time to get through the concepts.
Yep.
I really liked Craig Jones's Power Top instructional because he took something complicated to me and made a very simple system, or not even really a system, but just like here's some concepts you can build your own system with.
Right.
And that I found incredibly helpful, where it was like a great exposure. That is actually that's what I applied when I was trying to become better at guard passing, was a lot of his stuff. So I would say his ability to break things down into a simple kind of digestible way was really helpful. But let me think a little bit here. There's so many, right? Like, because like Lachlan Giles has got so much good stuff. Brandon McCaffrey's got some great stuff too. That less impressed, more involved guy, he's got some great videos on breaking down some ideas about it, and just like observations and whatnot.
So I would say on top of that, as far as techniques are concerned, how about something that's more like changed how you approach the game? And it might not be saying, hey, here's like a very detailed guard pass that like Danaher talks about, or Gordon, whomever. It's more like, and maybe sometimes it can reframe you a little bit, but maybe something like, wow, like watching them compete or how they talk about jiu-jitsu, like this is how I kind of change my energy up as far as like grappling now.
Okay. Yeah. From that angle, I would say Stephen Kesting.
Okay.
You know, like he's got such good stuff and he does a lot of good things for the community too, which is cool. But he's just got a very logical and relaxed way of looking at jiu-jitsu that I think is really good. And he's definitely like I would say one of the masters of jiu-jitsu, you know, even though he may not be training like the DDS, you know, or, you know, back when it exists and stuff, his quality of content and thinking is really, really high level. And he's just like, he's the one I got that jiu-jitsu will be waiting for you when you come back.
Yeah.
And just thinking about injuries and things like that. He's the old bull, right? Like, sorry, you know, Stefan, if you ever listen to this.
The old bull.
You know, but in a good way, you know.
But
like,
it takes people that far down the road to give really true lessons coming back.
Where he talks about, like, dude, take a week off, relax, heal. Like, it'll be waiting for you. Like, there's other things in life you can focus on in that time frame.
Right.
You know, like those types of deals. And then Robert Nacke as well. I know, like, they're kind of a package deal in a way.
Yeah.
But his instructional would actually, I should rewind. The most valuable instructional I've ever watched in my life was his BJJ Concepts one that him and Stefan built.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, and it was what I was always looking for when I started jiu-jitsu, because my question to people who did jiu-jitsu and who have been doing it for a long time was like, how do you start?
Right.
You know, and I didn't even know what to do. You like, you know, you slap bump and then what? Like, do we tackle each other? No, there's got to be something more to this. And his the way he's broken it down has been outstanding. I really, really like the way he communicates about jiu-jitsu. I also, I like the way he jokes around about jiu-jitsu, Robert Nacke and stuff, and makes fun of it. But
more
then
relaxed,
Yeah, but then at the same time, he runs a good school, and he also is a great competitor himself, and he's 47, and I like the way he thinks about it, and I think that's really cool. Like,
I think that's a really good answer. I like that.
Stephen Kesting and Robert Nacke would probably be my two, which is funny because neither of them are like monster like names in the sport that are, you know, tearing through people. You know, they're not the Gordon Ryan's, right? But their contribution to the sport, I think, is very, very, very high. They're without a doubt in the top, right? Like, and I think that's cool.
So I know you've mentioned before you haven't competed. So is that something you're feeling like you want to do in the near future to kind of get yourself out there?
Yeah.
It's intense as a blue belt now. You kind of get into that galaxy a little bit. Like, you'll get people who will definitely challenge some of it.
Yeah, like so there was a competition I literally wanted to do years ago when I first started, but then I ended up hurting my hand really bad, like a week out, and it was bad. So I was like, nothing's gonna happen. I'm pretty sure I dislocated my thumb and didn't really know it was totally dislocated, and it was super painful. And my hand got twisted. It was just one of those funky things, caught in a weird spot and then twisted.
Yeah,
it wasn't like an intentional attack. And then I was gonna do the theory 3-on-3 match.
No, that's right.
But then we didn't have enough people sign up, right?
Yeah.
So that was attempt number 2. So attempt 3, I'm hoping to make.
Okay.
And then the grappling invitational, I was busy, so I wasn't able to do that right now. But yeah, I would like to, especially to see where my gap in my game is. Not as much about like winning.
Yeah.
Which I should muster up a little more chutzpah with that to like make sure I bring it, but just want to see what happens really. And I'm at the age too where I'm kind of like, I'm just gonna tap. It's gonna just be a hard training session essentially with a lot of nerves, right? Because I'm gonna tap just as early as I would for anything else. At least that's my goal, right? I'm not going to go in with the assumption of winning, and that might be a bad idea.
Well, I think most people I've seen that are injured in grappling, it's more because of how tense everything is.
Yeah.
It's not like trying to malicious, like hurt somebody. It's more like they're tensing their arm or they're tensing their body and they're getting twisted, and it's like you're not usually that tense, especially if you're more of an experienced belt. It's just more like the nerves of things of like what you're feeling. So we are actually going to a Craig Jones seminar next week, which should be very enlightening in his personality. Who's someone that you would really love to go have a seminar? I know you were just mentioning Stephen Kesting and Robert Nacky, but is there someone else that you think would be like, wow, this would be a great grappling experience to go and to see them and hear them too?
The Craig Jones one you talked me into because I like Craig Jones's content, like his teaching instructionals and stuff, and it seems like it'd be cool. And it was just the right price, the right time, the right day. Works. Everything worked out.
Yeah.
I'm not as big on seminars, just because they're so like I don't learn as much in them.
Okay, so let's retract that. How about like the week training? I think we talked about that
Robert
before.
Nacky.
Okay.
Robert Nacky for sure.
You spend a whole week with him.
Oh yeah, and he actually does that.
Oh, really?
He's got a free service where you can sign up for it. You're allowed to sleep on his couch, train at his school for 1 week.
So one of these weeks, I'm not going to see you for a while.
Yeah, I'll say we should go together. That'd be cool. But no, it's in Canada though, so it's a hike, And it's his visiting student program, and it's literally free. He just lets people. He's been doing it for years. You just got to make sure he requires you're vaccinated and stuff, and then that you're. Gonna be cool. Don't be a jerk.
You're gonna be cool.
But yeah, I thought that was just a really kind and cool idea. Like, he's had that for a long time. You can sleep on his couch for a week and train at his school for free for a week. It's all free.
Okay.
He's got to pay for your own food and stuff, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we talked about you recently got promoted to blue belt at my studio. What do you feel is going to be very important for you progressing in your grappling career? I know we just talked about the ability, like you've already successfully or more successfully done recently with injuries, of being very cognizant of injuries.
Not get injured is the big one.
Yeah, taking care of yourself. Obviously things happen, but being cognizant of it. But how about, let's say, as far as like you getting to that kind of next level of abilities, let's put it that way. I know it's a very progressive kind of climb, but to say like, what do you think is going to put you at a purple belt level of understanding? We have a student here, a member here recently, Hunter Bowe, which is Dylan. Dylan's actually brother-in-law that will be getting promoted to purple belt this week. And it's got nice and fancy in here. He obviously has a very unique style and personality when it comes to grappling. What do you feel would put, Matthew Bartman at that next level? What do you visualize as a purple belt? It's a long drawn out question, but like, what do you visualize yourself as a purple belt? What does that look like?
So, a couple things. I've actually started thinking about this a little bit. So lately I haven't had like a specific focus. I've more so just been dabbling with a couple different things, and I think it's good to go through stages of both, where you dabble and where you focus, and where you dabble and where you focus. Just because I've been interested in, like, we were doing the ham sandwich the other day, doing stuff with the dog fight. I have these like spots where I have glaring holes that I need to figure out. Okay. And I've also recently been kind of like seeing what people throw at me that I don't have an answer for and trying to come up with an answer. Kind of like, a couple different things. I've been working on my half guard a little bit just because I don't have a lot going on there. My half guard's pretty lame, so I've been trying to build that up. But I think it's that I have pockets of places that I feel very comfortable and dangerous in, and it's going to be the integration of these different places into a smooth, cohesive system where I don't have all the answers, but I got some pretty good ones. So like, it's like, for instance, I want to feel comfortable doing the 4 different ways you can start a match.
Okay.
I want to be able to start comfortably from my butt. I want to be able to start comfortably from my feet. I want to start comfortably from a passing position against a guard bottom player. And then also be able to also go into some leg locks with just a couple proficient things.
So comfortable, you're saying like at least having some basic setups, basic options that you're not looking at stuff going, I don't know what to do from here.
Yeah, essentially I'll have like 2 game plans from each spot.
Okay.
Is really what it is.
Interesting.
Like the guard passing I'm feeling pretty good with, but like playing a seated game, I need to work on that more. Okay. Right? Because there's an infinite amount of options in jiu-jitsu, so the sad thing is you do have to choose some, and you got to go with it, and I'm having a hard time with that because I enjoy so much of it, but I think that the reality is I need to deep dive and just have like a tear of a system that I can build up a whole entire pathways that are really effective for me. So for instance, with my guard passing, where you go from loose to tight, my tight to, and I skip right past side control, go to mount, and get really, really vicious with an arm triangle or getting to the back. So like that would be the pathway, right? And I want it to be very developed. So my next focus might actually be just getting to people's backs.
Okay.
So like I want to be able to get that.
I'm very good at that.
Yep, I'm picking a couple core submissions that I'm going to become very proficient at. Essentially, straight leg locks, heel hooks inside and outside from various positions, because those kind of all group together. They don't work well in a vacuum, right? You gotta the straight ankle lock sometimes opens up the heel hook and vice versa.
Sure.
So it'd be those, my arm triangle, also a rear naked choke from the back, just because I feel like I need to get better at isolating and being able to go for that.
Sure.
And then I'll give myself some space to maybe throw another one in there, but that's probably it. And then I want to build my game around being able to do that in a way that is super effective. I know a lot of responses people are going to give me, because right now I kind of like just engage to see what's going to happen, see what all the responses are. I think that would be purple belt me, because that purple belt version of me is going to be able to tap a lot of people, and that'd be a good expression of the art, and just having some good processes.
And I think we talk about the expression of the art because the other day we were talking about the 20%.
Yeah.
Which was interesting. The 20% of what's the most efficient and all that, but also on top of that, you're starting to see emerging techniques of let's say the ham sandwich.
Yeah.
Or the buggy choke. Yeah. Or all these other things that maybe are very creative and fun to do, but you don't see it really expressed too much at a higher stage or higher level. They happen every once in a while. So how do you feel about people who are training and expressing themselves through grappling, but maybe they're taking a lot of their training sessions and they're just playing with and experimenting with all these kind of varied things? I say that because if people are coming into grappling, obviously you want to pay for a lot of times people teaching you jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But at some point there'll be some people going, well, instead of that, I saw this cool move and I'm doing, a buggy choke from side control, choke from bomb side control position, or whatever the case may be, or doing that a lot. Do you feel that there's a time and a place for that, or do you feel that more jiu-jitsu people should be focused on things that maybe have a higher percentage chance of?
I think it depends on your belt and goals too.
And the goals as well. I was thinking about, I was hearing your purple belt.
Yeah, if you're new, I think you should explore everything. Taste every food on the buffet. See how it tastes. Then you start to learn what you like and what you think tastes good. I think once you feel like you've got a good footing on that, and you'll know when you're there, right? Once you feel like you have a decent understanding of it, then I think is where you start flipping it, and you go 80% of the time focus on the 20% that you know is going to work for you really well. Whether that's just you just have good success with it, or you like it, or whatever, and then spend your other 20% of your time playing with new stuff, different things, because you might end up finding something, you move into that 20%, right? Where you're like, this is worth it. Or also, you don't want to be the guy who runs into something and you're like, it was so obvious. Imagine you've never seen a baseball choke in the gi, and you
reached out,
and you're a black belt, and then a white belt baseball bat chokes you, and you're just what the hell was that? Like, you want to have, I think, very few of those moments, and you only get that from practicing and playing with things. Mm-hmm. And it might open up another way to think about the sport, but I think focusing too much on it, I think, would be bad. But here's the other thing. If you want to be okay at jiu-jitsu, I think just show up and do whatever. Just keep showing up, and you'll become okay. Mm-hmm. But if you want to become good at jiu-jitsu, I think you have to make the trade-off of, and when I say good, my scale is there's, okay, good, great, and exceptional, right? So if you want to be good at jiu-jitsu, you need to pick a couple things, get really good at it.
I think you bring up a great point, because I think when people come to the point of blue belt, it seems like, cool, you understand jiu-jitsu, like you understand the main goals, what we're trying to do, you've seen a few things. And I think most people run into obstacles on their way to purple because either they haven't really been efficient at a lot of different movements, or they've run into people getting choked by them or getting submitted by them. And I've seen a lot of people actually quit jiu-jitsu or not roll as much because they end up getting tapped by someone over and over again, and they just get disheartened by it. So I think it's interesting that when you see more and more people grapple, I actually think one of the biggest obstacles is that once people run into something that they can't solve, that becomes a really weird fork in the road. That I've worked with people that I would tap them all the time with cross collars.
Yeah.
And I could tell they were frustrated, but they were like, oh, cool, nice cross collar.
Yeah.
But then I'd keep getting it on them. Like, it wasn't something where I'm like, I see they're doing an adjustment, and then I'm beating that adjustment. It was something like, for myself, if I was working with someone and they were triangle choking me all the time, it would be only a month or two until that was done.
Yeah, because they'd go, I will not let you.
I'm not going to let this happen.
Yeah, this is not going to happen.
So how do you feel about some people when they start, like, for yourself, for example, and maybe this is a transition when you're early on, how did you work running into obstacles with, say, Dylan early on, or even someone in here, did you take time and try to figure stuff out, like, on your own, or did you just try and just overcome things on the mat?
So when I first started, it was just more of overcoming things on the mat, just kind of like trying to figure out a way, because I didn't understand like just some of the basics as far as like, hey, this is a good, I understood techniques, but not like the underlying concepts that, make them work, why stepping over if someone's trying to onoplata you, like why that's a good idea, and like, kind of like things like that. So now I can start doing funky things where I like grab, I know the goal, not the technique as much, but now I definitely I wait and see what I get put in a lot, right? And then I'm like, okay, I don't have a good answer for this, and then I start deep diving in instructional or something like that. Like, for instance, that's why I've been playing around with Lachlan Giles stuff a little bit. Yeah, I've been like insanely busy, so I admittedly have been not watching as much as I should, but by the end of the month I will be fine. But hold on, I want to go back to one quick thing.
Oh, go for it. Let's do it.
So you were asking about what I would look like what does my purple belt game look like?
Oh, right. Yep.
Here's actually a better way to describe it. It's more succinct. I want to be very good at the 4 ways you can start a match, and then I'm going to have a few simple ways to get to a submission. Okay. That's high percentage for me. That's it. Because I want to be
very efficient routes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm actually more focused on, I want to be very good at the 4 ways to start, and then I'm essentially funneling to everything. Like, I don't play side control. Guess what? I just don't. I don't play side control. I play mount, I play back, and I play the legs, and that's it.
It's so funny because we just had that conversation of like, what if you just played leg lock game? The leg lock game is not just like one position.
No.
It's a
whole setup
system that you play. So that's very interesting you say that, like, to get to a certain point. And I think that's exactly going back on the subject of, I think some people say, hey, I like coming to jiu-jitsu, I like hanging out with friends, I like getting a little bit of a workout in, I explore things here and there, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And then I think there's some people who are involved with it, and they sit in the shower and cry afterwards of getting arm locked. Like they care about it, you know? Like to say, like, I got caught and go, like, how the fuck did I... Versus kind of going, it happens, and they move on.
Or the rare occurrence that you have a good day. You're like...
Yeah, this is so good.
In the air and you're like, woo! It's rare, right? Like, at least for me, that's how it feels.
But I should say there's
every 20 shitty days, you have like one good day where you're just like, I'm on fire today, you know?
I would say that because I think there's some people who...
I felt that way last week. I had a good day.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I had a good day.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
I say that because I think there's some people who check in to say, hey, I'm a blue or purple belt. I come in, I could tap a good amount of people. I get tapped by a few people, and it's just how it goes. And then they keep checking it out with their same game over and over again.
You almost have to have like both ideas in your head.
Right.
Where you have to be kind of relaxed about it, but then also be like, shit, I'm sick of getting caught.
I honestly think that there's people who have a difficult time like learning how to adjust it. And that's what I was kind of thinking your mindset to say, how do you feel, you know, being on the mats and when you're experiencing jiu-jitsu of like having those times where someone beats you, or maybe you run into someone that you keep tapping them over and over again and they're kind of like, meh, like they just kind of let it happen a little bit.
I think, some people might.
Yeah.
You know, I think now too, it's much easier for me to go like we talk about like jiu-jitsu as a language. It's hard to articulate what you're trying to find. Like the internet only helps if you know what you're looking for.
It only ask good questions, right?
Yeah. So like if you're like getting smashed all the time and you're new, then you go, how do I stop getting smashed? But smashed means a lot of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're getting smashed, it's like, you know, versus now it's like, how do I stop essentially the top player if I'm playing a bottom game wearing half guard and they're trying to get their top knee out and they're doing it by sitting on their left hip if I'm playing on my right side.
Yeah.
Now I can start to look for like half guard. I have to like look for that specific things where I'm like, it's almost like they're entering octopus guard and I need to have a good rebuttal for it besides just rolling for octopus guard again and again, right? Mm-hmm. Like I think that helps with it because now I know specifically what to do. And then I'll try it, and I'll try it, and I'll try it, and then if it breaks down, I figure out why it's breaking down, and or I run into the next obstacle, and I keep going from there. But yeah, I think it's just a language thing. You got to know what the problem is. Like, you know, like your car's broken down. How to fix your car when it's broken down isn't going to give you much of what you're looking for, but saying, you know, hey, something's wrong with my caliper. You can look that up online and find an answer.
That makes sense. I definitely think there's like a 3-level process when people are learning jiu-jitsu. And I think in the beginning, it's like everything's chaos. In the middle, it's like, I kind of learned a couple things. And the third level is like, I've made purposeful advancements to become really good at this.
Yeah.
And I think there's some people who just learn the language and they just show up to kind of speak it here and there.
Yeah.
And they might miss a few words. And it's like, that's that kind of push, you know? So I think it's very interesting. You know, as far as like you're talking about how, you know, you want to focus on these, you know, 4 entries and these main positions. Yeah. I'm curious because I think a lot of people at schools that just advance to the purple belt level, it's almost like at some schools, unfortunately, it's just randomized time. Like they basically have that same mindset, but there's no like, oh, this year I'm going to focus on triangle chokes.
Yeah.
I don't think there's too many people that kind of have that motivation and focus with it.
Robert Nacky says, black belt's not for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like people get kind of bummed about that. And it's true, right? Because like there's some flexibility there.
So I should say that there should be a ceiling of the purple belt. Like before you get to the purple belt, like, nope, you're going to actually have to need some legit answers.
Yeah. Before
you get past purple.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
It can't just be like, hey, I have this blue belt. Let me just walk 2 years until I just cross the line. It's like, there should be like like, sorry, do you have legit ways to beat triangles?
Yeah.
Maybe one, but whatever. Like getting tapped, it's like imagine if you were at school and you just took tests but you failed or got C's or whatever.
Yeah.
And go, you win some, you lose some, and they go,
yeah.
No, sorry. Like in order to get the degree, like you have to have this level of understanding.
Yeah, and I think that's how it should work too. And I think the conversation around it has to change. Where, say someone comes in, they just like showing up, speaking the language a little bit, and kind of having some fun. Like, great, blue belt's for you. And if you stay a blue belt your entire jiu-jitsu journey, that's okay. Yeah. Like, it doesn't mean you have to keep progressing. Like, you don't have to keep going. But if you want a purple belt, you have to have some type of dedicated training, and you have to like represent a little bit. You got to be able to show it.
That's a great step up.
You know, I think that's great. Like, because it's still acknowledging the fact, like, hey, you can get to a blue belt by just showing up and keep doing it, right? Like, you know, but if you want to be good at it, it's going to take dedicated effort, and that's okay. Like, I think people think that the belt is the progress, but it's actually like they get too hung up on the belt.
Well, and I think that could be the same thing, like I said, going to like college degrees is like some people can get to a certain level, which is fine, but in order to be recognized or get to a certain point, there needs to be extra effort and energy into things.
Imagine they just handed out PhDs like that.
For people that but you showed up to class. I came to the classes.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's part of the work. Yeah. But you could also hardly show up to classes and pass the test.
Yeah.
If you have the knowledge, it's like it's a weird mix. So back on the subject about Matthew Bartman. So we'll do 2 last questions here and we'll wrap it up. The one is, what do you think your martial arts path would have looked like had you started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Not Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when you were, let's say, middle school or high school. Like if you had,
like,
had
did I see
access.
Say I saw the value in it too?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying like yourself as that kid. Like, do you think you would have burnt out of it really quickly, or do you think you would have like been hungry and just
I think I would have liked it. Yeah. Okay. I'd like, because I always thought judo was cool.
Sure.
I would have liked it too. I think I would have been most content with both striking and grappling together.
Okay.
Like, comes back down to that MMA thing, right? Like,
sure.
I think that would have been like the thing for me to do.
Probably went and competed and more outlets for that.
If I did jiu-jitsu at first, I probably would have started learning striking at some point. Like, just because they both have always interested me.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And then the last question, just because you ended our last podcast with this one. So what
prepare.
You can't. You gotta just do this. So what's your spirit animal, what it looks like for grappling?
My grappling spirit animal?
No.
Ooh, for like how my game is and stuff. So
yeah, like your person in front of you is your prey. Like if you want to view it as prey, I guess. But it's like, how do you?
What if you're not a prey? No, but
I'm an armadillo. Yeah. I curl up. I curl up and hope you get tired of beating me up.
No. Let me think here.
You know, it's interesting because I saw a video the other day of a porcupine and a cheetah, and the cheetah kept like battering, and the porcupine did its little thrust.
Yeah.
And the leopard, I think it was leopard, he was peeling things out, and the porcupine was like looking at him going, did you get the point? I get it, literally. Point. But did you get it? Like, this is what I can do, and he like backed off.
Oh,
I think that's interesting too, where it's like, don't mess with me. Okay, you messed with me, and it's like, you learn, like, this is what I can do right now, and go, oh yeah, never mind, I'm not gonna. So it could be anything.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. See, the hard part is like, it depends on like the type of game you're playing too at that time. Where like sometimes it's fun to be like pressuring in and pulling in, like, actually mine's not an animal, but I have a thing to describe it. Okay, all right.
You're not answering my question.
I want it to be a river, a really powerful river, where like you're in the water and it just wears you down, and you're just like, by the end you're just like, you're exhausted and trying to keep your head above the water, but it's inevitable, kind of like we were talking about before too, but like where it's just like this rushing water where it's like you will never beat the amount of just like pressure and energy, and that is just overcoming your like essentially what's happening there. That's kind of one that I kind of think about, where
think about
you're like stuck in a rapids.
I think about an animal that just like, I mean, are you think of it as overwhelming, or do you think of it like an inevitable thing?
Well,
do you want them to feel like it's this overwhelming sensation, or do you want it to feel like it's just like, no matter how much I struggle, I'm just gonna be done? Because the one I'm thinking about is like some sort of like snake or anaconda, where it's like you get wrapped up, and suddenly it's like every breath you take, like suddenly it's just getting.
It sounds so cliche, but it would be cool to do like some type of constrictor. But because I was thinking about how cool, I had an idea. So you do like the rear body triangle on somebody, the rib one, and I actually was literally thinking how cool it would be to get someone in it, and then just as you're fighting for the hands and listening for their breath, just keep taking air out. So by the time that they like can't open their they can't open their stomach or breathe, and you're just sitting there just like, going for it, and you're just. And I like the fact too that I actually do like a slower game in that regard. Yeah. So like. But it sounds so cliche saying a snake, man. When you were saying about a snake.
When you were saying about the overwhelming sensation, one visual that came to mind was like an alligator, because alligators have things like the death rolls a little bit.
Very explosive,
but it's explosive, right? But I was thinking something where it's like, or something that pulls you under and like drowns you, basically. Something where it's like, no matter how much I fight, I am getting drowned right now, and there's like, it's inevitable, like something that could just like. Because drowning to me seems more of like that same thing. Like, I'm trying to rush back to the surface, and I'm trying to break free, and I can't. Type of thing, know?
I'm trying to think if there's anything else like, that's like, it sounds so cliche to say a snake, but I would say probably like.
You can see why it's a big.
I like snakes too. They're cool. Plus they're explosive, and then they also hold contractions for a long time.
Or maybe we need to watch more like.
I watch
National Geographic.
I'm trying to think
the animals.
I'm going through it right now. Like I'm like Okay, not a mantis shrimp. That'd be more like a boxing thing, and
Yeah.
And I like games where they're just you're pressuring and whatnot too, but also.
Yeah, I think like we talked about, I like the idea of they know what's coming, but they can't stop it.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of like, hey, I'm distracting you with something very flowery and then hit you over here.
Yeah.
Because to me that feels like, oh, I know what that is now and I'll overcome it. I want it to be like, no matter what you do, like a black hole. Like it's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's almost like a gelatinous cube thing, where like something that pulls you in. Like I almost want it to be like quicksand. Where
I didn't say it had to be a real animal.
I would say like quicksand would be a good one too. Because like for instance, I like the games where the minute you get a connection, it's just like just sucking you in, right?
Yeah.
Like you're like this essentially is gonna pull you down.
Well, I think that's why I like the idea of the bite. It's like once I find the opening, like you already sealed your fate.
Yeah.
Like once I have this, there's no going back. Like you can't just suddenly leave and escape.
Yeah, I'd have to think more on that one to give a really good answer.
We'll do another one.
But yeah, I'll think about it. Maybe we'll start another podcast with Here, I put some more thought into it.
We'll start it and then we'll open up the rest of it.
We're revisiting our spirit animals.
We'll do that. Yeah.
My
I'll watch some more.
Is sand.
Yeah. It gets everywhere and it's irritating.
Yeah, really annoying. But
that's way too funny.
I'm gonna legit.
Oh, that's true because sand can be super light and it can also be.
Yeah. See, you want to
super heavy if you want to be underneath.
Yeah,
it.
That's the thing. Like you want to be like amorphous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking about elements more than this, like kind of like than an animal.
That sounds interesting. Yeah, what kind of element would you be? Would you be?
Yeah, I think that's actually the direction I'm gonna go with it. Element.
You'd be an element.
I want to pick an element. Yeah, I don't want to do an animal. I want to do an element.
Well, if I was an element, it'd be like being in the middle of a thunder cloud.
Ooh, you want to do thundercloud? Okay.
Because it's like you're hearing things and you're just panicked. It's like bam, something hits you, and you're like, what the fuck was that?
That fits your style
like,
too.
Like you'd be more like
is like kind of there, and then boom,
something's
there. Do something.
Yeah, I want people to feel panic. Yeah. Like I want it to feel like you didn't have a chance. Like I think, but that's my own personality. We talk about that, but something where it's like I want it to feel like let's say some animal that really draws its prey in and then suddenly pounces on them.
Yeah.
Like that could be things too, but it's like I don't know.
I do water. I want water. I want my game to be more like, because it's really flexible then, right?
Yeah.
Like I want people to push into me and be like, feel like there's nothing there sometimes, and then sometimes it's like a wall of water, like
someone's gonna
rushes over.
Someone's gonna eventually be like Mr. Defense, but then they'll be like, someone's gonna. I could see like Dylan saying like I'm a honey badger.
Yeah.
Like honey badger just
Dylan,
like
his
doesn't get fucking killed.
Fire.
Yeah.
Fire. Just
go.
Like and he's good at it. Like it works for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the element thing.
Yeah.
Well, I can't choose an animal, but I can choose an element. I do water.
That would be probably better
Earth
for asking people.
Too.
Yeah.
Luke would be Earth. Boom, boom. It's a very powerful and very sturdy, like.
That's funny.
I think his would be Earth. Yeah.
That sounds like more like what Avatar style would you been.
It's like a mountain on top of you,
Oh, that's way too funny.
My jujitsu element is water.
Element sounds way cooler than animals, because then, like you said, people default like. So why do people pick like rhinos and stuff and gorillas for their gyms?
Gorillas make sense because it is a very like grab, squeeze kind of thing. Gorillas are strong.
It's just very in your face. Though.
I like more of like the bending.
I would like the idea that's more like less. That's what I said about the Komodo, because it has a look to it, but it's not like some big performance thing. It's not like I smash and I kill and I break. It's like a bear or something like that.
Funny, though. With infections being a thing in combat sports, it's kind of funny too. So hopefully you're not known for like giving infections.
No, that sounds so bad. Like I'm the Komodo dragon, because I give him staff, and guess what? Eventually, he just leaves the mats. He just never is back again. It's getting worse, man. Oh, that's so bad.
We can't keep any members for some reason.
That's so funny.
But
I played a long game. I beat them, by then we're doing jiu-jitsu again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I do it. That's a good way to wrap this up. Well, cool. Got a little preview. I'm sure we'll talk more, especially when we relate a little bit with other hosts and talk about shared experiences. Anything you want to close with right away?
No, it's good. Just everyone stay tuned. We're going to be developing this thing over time.
Yep.
Bear with us. We're new to doing this type of...
We'll have some topics we'll discuss. I mean, we always have different things that we, on the side, start talking about, and we go, we should just have like a separate session where we talk about these things.
Yeah.
And then as we get more and more with sessions, definitely like feedback from people.
Yeah,
there's
that'd be
certain
great.
subjects that people are stressed about or like more guidance on, and then even finding some other experts that we can talk with about too. Because as much as we have our own experiences, it's great to just hear from someone who does it very well, who understands it very well, that can give more meaningful.
We should get some new people on the podcast too.
Yeah.
Not a lot of new people are on jiu-jitsu podcasts.
No. Well, that's why I think I talked about saying like someone who's on their path to blue belt or newer, to say, what do you feel is most stressful for you? What do you, like you were just talking about before, like injuries and such. Like, I think those are good things to know, that say, hey, I'm not alone with this right now.
Yeah.
So, cool. Awesome, guys. We will see you soon.